I have lived on Pine Ridge Road for almost 10 years, and during every single one of those years, I enjoyed one very specific luxury: my property was not, in any way, shape, or form, part of an HOA. That fact alone was a major reason I bought the place. I wanted peace. I wanted privacy. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with power-hungry neighborhood boards that measured grass blades or lectured residents about mailbox colors. So when I opened my mailbox on a warm Thursday afternoon and saw an envelope labeled Pine Ridge Homeowners Association, Notice of Outstanding Dues, I actually laughed. Out loud. Standing in my driveway. "Yeah, right," I muttered, tearing it open just to see the comedy inside. The letter was far more dramatic than I expected. It demanded that I immediately pay $4,860 in overdue HOA dues, late fees, and community maintenance charges. It also said I had 15 days to comply or I would face legal action. At first, I assumed it was a scam, maybe some phishing attempt or an accidental misprint. I lived on a private lot that had been separated from the HOA map since the early 1990s. My deed clearly stated that my home was exempt. I even confirmed it when I bought the place. But the letter kept insisting I was part of the community and that my non-payment had caused administrative strain on the HOA budget. The final paragraph threatened that the HOA would pursue all legal remedies, including property liens. My laugh slowly died. Was this a joke? A prank? A clerical error? I walked back into the house and immediately pulled out my file drawer. Within 2 minutes, I had my property deed, survey map, and the original disclosure documents from when I purchased the house. Every single one stated the same thing: no HOA membership attached to this parcel. Something was wrong. I called the number on the letter. A woman answered with the kind of voice that already assumed she was right. "This is Valerie, HOA president. How may I assist you?" she said. "Yes, I received a letter claiming I owe dues," I replied calmly. "I believe you sent it to the wrong person. My property is not part of your HOA." A long silence followed. "Yes, it is," she finally snapped. "The board voted last month to annex the remaining homes on the block into the community. You now fall under our authority." I blinked. "You cannot just annex private property. That is not how anything works." "Well, we already did," she said smugly. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Your first payment is due in 15 days. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone, stunned. She spoke with the confidence of someone who thought she was unstoppable. Someone who believed the rules only existed for other people. Someone who had clearly overstepped every legal boundary imaginable. I spent the next hour researching. I read everything I could about HOAs attempting forced annexation. Every article confirmed the same thing: it is illegal without the property owner's consent and a properly filed legal process. None of that had happened here. Just as I finished reading a legal article, a loud knock rattled my front door. I opened it to find 3 HOA board members standing on my porch, 2 men and 1 woman, all holding clipboards like they were federal agents instead of neighborhood volunteers. The woman in front was Valerie. Her sunglasses were enormous, her posture rigid, and her expression full of self-importance. "We need to discuss your refusal to pay," she declared before I even greeted her. "We have a community to maintain and you are interfering with our operations." "I already told you," I said calmly, "my home is not part of your HOA. You have no authority here." She gave a smug smirk. "We voted. It is done." "That is not legally binding," I replied. The 2 men behind her crossed their arms, clearly expecting me to fold under intimidation. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. "You have 15 days before we escalate this," Valerie said. "And trust me, you do not want us to escalate." She turned sharply and marched back toward the sidewalk like she had just delivered a government mandate. The two men followed with the same attitude, one of them glancing back at me with a fake sympathetic shake of his head. I closed the door. Then I did something they never expected. I called my attorney. By the time I finished explaining the situation, he was silent for a long moment. They did what? He finally said. Tried to forcibly annex my property. That is completely unlawful, he said. Let me contact the county clerk and pull the records. If they filed anything, there will be a paper trail. I felt a wave of relief. Someone was finally confirming what I already knew. Within 2 hours, he called back. They filed nothing, he said. Absolutely nothing. They are bluffing, and they just crossed several legal lines. This is not just civil territory. Depending on how far they push, this may qualify as harassment, fraud, and possibly attempted extortion. I felt a slow, cold anger rise in my chest. The HOA had no idea what kind of storm they had invited. Because if they wanted a legal fight, they were about to get one they could not possibly win. The morning after the courtroom confrontation, I woke up to sunlight spilling through the blinds and the peaceful quiet of a neighborhood that did not have an HOA. Yet the illusion of peace ended the moment I opened my mailbox. It was stuffed, absolutely jammed, with more envelopes from the same HOA that insisted I belonged to them. Some were marked, final notice, others, urgent, and one was even tagged, immediate legal action required. It was almost comical. Almost. I pulled every envelope out and carried the pile inside, dropping it onto my kitchen table with a thud. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down, and began opening them one by one. Every letter repeated the same nonsense: threats of fines, demands for payments, accusations of violations, and claims that I was delinquent on dues for a homeowners association that never included my property. They even attached photos of someone else's house entirely, insisting it was mine. By the third letter, I started laughing. They were so desperate that they were fabricating evidence. By the 10th, I was no longer laughing. Delusion was one thing, but this was coordinated fraud. I picked up my phone and called the county clerk's office. The woman on the other end, Mrs. Perry, recognized my voice immediately. "Oh, it is you again," she said. "More trouble from that HOA?" "More like a mountain of it," I replied. "Do you still have the deed copies I requested?" "I do," she said. "And I pulled their filings like you asked yesterday. You might want to come down here. There is something you are going to want to see for yourself." I did not waste a second. I grabbed the entire stack of HOA envelopes, tossed them into a bag, and drove to the county building. When I arrived, Mrs. Perry waved me into her office with an expression that suggested she had just discovered something unbelievable. She handed me a folder. "Here. These are their boundary claims." I opened it to find printed pages outlining the HOA's self-declared map, including houses far beyond their original limit. And there it was, my parcel, clearly outside the boundary, yet somehow scribbled over with a handwritten extension line. Someone had literally taken a pen to a county document copy and drawn the borders outward. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. "Oh, I wish I were," she said. "They submitted this altered version to the county 2 weeks ago. The clerk who received it rejected it immediately. But they have been sending the fake version to homeowners. So they know it is fake," I said. "And they are going along with it anyway." "They do not just know," she replied. "They created it." This was no longer a misunderstanding. This was calculated fraud. I spent an hour gathering every document the county had: original HOA boundary maps, rejected submissions, property lines, and legal notices proving my land was completely outside their jurisdiction. Mrs. Perry even printed fresh, certified copies with raised seals so the HOA could not claim I forged anything. When I got home, I spread everything across my dining table and took photos of every document. If they wanted a legal fight, I was going to give them one, with evidence they could not wiggle out of. That evening, as I sat reviewing everything, I heard a car door slam outside. I looked through the window and saw 3 HOA board members marching toward my porch with clipboards, cameras, and folders. Karen, the board president, was in front as always. She strutted up my steps like she owned the place. Before she even knocked, she shouted, "We are here to issue official violations. You cannot ignore us anymore." I opened the door but did not step aside. "You have 20 seconds to get off my property." Her smug grin widened. "We will not leave until you acknowledge your unpaid dues. We have proof you belong to our association." I held up my phone and snapped a picture of the trio on my porch. "Great. Evidence of trespassing." Karen scoffed. "Trespassing? This entire block is under HOA jurisdiction. You cannot trespass on HOA property." I reached over to my dining table, grabbed the certified deed, and held it up so she could see the raised county seal. "You mean this property?" I asked calmly. "The one that legally does not belong to your HOA? The one whose boundaries have not changed since the subdivision was created? The one documented in the county registry long before any of you became board members?" Her smile wavered. I opened the second folder, the one containing copies of their altered map, and held it up beside the real one. "And this," I continued, "is your little forgery. You submitted a fake map to homeowners. The county rejected it. I have the records." The man behind her muttered, "He has copies. This is bad." Karen snapped, "Shut up, Harold." Then she turned back to me, arms crossed. "You can wave paper in my face all you want. We have authority. You will pay what you owe." I stepped fully outside, closing the door behind me. "The next time you set foot on my property, you will be speaking to a sheriff, not me." Her bravado cracked. She turned sharply, storming off my porch, but not before yelling, "We will see you in court." I smiled to myself. That was exactly what I wanted. Court was where their lies would die. By the time the court date finally arrived, I was past the point of being annoyed. Now I was curious. Curious to see how far this HOA, which I was not even a part of, would stretch reality to try and squeeze money out of me. My attorney, Linda Pierce, was equally fascinated. "I have handled stupid cases," she told me as we walked up the courthouse steps, "but this might be the gold medal." Inside the courtroom, the HOA board members sat together like a coordinated flock of pigeons, whispering among themselves while glancing at me with smug confidence. Karen sat in the middle, wearing a bright blazer, hair puffed to maximum volume, and a look that screamed "I already won." Her husband sat beside her, gripping her handbag like he had been assigned emotional support duty. The HOA's attorney, a tired-looking man who seemed like he regretted every life choice that brought him to this moment, kept flipping through a folder of papers as if searching for something that never existed. The judge, a stern woman with silver-framed glasses and an expression that said she suffered zero nonsense, entered the room. Everyone stood, then sat again. "Case number 45821, the clerk announced. Lakewood Ridge Homeowners Association vs. Daniel Porter." The judge looked down at the papers. "Mr. Porter, it states here the HOA is suing you for unpaid dues spanning 3 years, totaling $12,600. Is that correct?" I nodded calmly. "They sent the bill, Your Honor. But I do not live in their community. I am not under their HOA. I have never signed an agreement with them." The judge turned to the HOA. "Is this true? Is Mr. Porter not part of your subdivision?" Karen sprang to her feet as if spring-loaded. "Your Honor, he lives close enough. His property borders our neighborhood. And his home, well, it affects our property values." The judge raised a brow. "So you are charging him because you do not like his house?" Karen folded her arms. "It is an eyesore. He refuses to follow the rules. He refuses to attend meetings. He refuses to pay dues everyone else pays. This is a community, and he should contribute like the rest of us. Linda nearly burst out laughing beside me. The judge adjusted her glasses. Do you have a signed agreement? Any legal contract proving Mr. Porter agreed to join your association? Karen hesitated. No, but community spirit. Community spirit does not override property law, the judge replied sharply. The HOA's attorney finally stood. Your Honor, the HOA board unanimously voted to include Mr. Porter's property inside the HOA boundary last year. Therefore, the judge cut him off. Show me the updated plat map and county approval. The attorney froze. We do not have official approval. We assumed. You assumed incorrectly. The judge tapped her pen. Boundaries cannot be expanded without county authorization. Did you notify Mr. Porter in writing? Did he consent to become part of your HOA? Karen jumped back in. We mailed him a letter. I spoke up. Yes. Handwritten on notebook paper and taped to a flyer for a yard sale. The courtroom erupted in quiet laughter. Karen's face turned tomato red. It still counts. The judge leaned back. Mrs. Henderson, not only does that not count, it is dangerously close to harassment. You cannot arbitrarily demand money from someone who is not legally part of your association. Linda glanced at me with a smile that said, here it comes. The judge continued, voice cold and precise. This lawsuit is frivolous, baseless, and a waste of this court's time. In fact, she shuffled through the paperwork. Did I see a history of repeated harassment toward Mr. Porter? Fake dues notices. Threatening letters. Attempts to enter his property. The HOA board collectively stared at their laps. Therefore, the judge declared, the lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Karen's jaw dropped open so far it looked unhinged. But the judge was not done. I am also ordering an immediate investigation into the HOA's operations. There are potential violations of county policy. Should misconduct be confirmed, this court will not hesitate to dissolve the Lakewood Ridge HOA entirely. Karen shot up again. Dissolve? You cannot do that. This community needs us. No, the judge replied calmly. What this community needs is leadership that follows the law. The gavel slammed. Court adjourned. Karen slumped into her seat as if her bones had collapsed. Her attorney packed up in record speed, clearly wanting to escape the disaster. The other board members stood silently, afraid to make eye contact with anyone. As Linda and I walked out of the courtroom, she whispered, you know. This is not over for them. An investigation like that? They are going to implode. I took a breath, feeling the weight of 2 years of frustration finally lift off my shoulders. Good, I said. Maybe they will finally leave me alone. But little did I know. The storm was just beginning. The courtroom was silent when the clerk called our case. Despite everything the HOA had already put me through, the letters, the fake fines, the threats, I felt strangely calm as I stood and walked toward the plaintiff and defendant tables. Across the aisle, the entire HOA board sat together like some kind of matching, miserable choir. Karen, their president, was front and center, wearing an expression that mixed confidence with entitlement. But beneath it, I could see the fear. She knew things had spiraled. She just did not know how badly. My attorney, Mr. Coleman, opened his briefcase and neatly arranged the stack of evidence we had gathered, maps, land records, county documents, video clips from my doorbell camera, and several signed witness statements from neighbors who disliked the HOA almost as much as I did. Meanwhile, Karen slammed her paperwork onto her table loudly, clearly trying to intimidate me. It did not work. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, looked up from the file and raised a brow. "Before we begin, I want to be clear," she said. "This is a case about the enforcement of HOA dues against a homeowner who is not, according to county documents, part of the HOA at all." A faint wave of whispers moved through the courtroom. Karen's jaw tensed. "That is not correct, Your Honor," she snapped, standing before her attorney could stop her. "He lives adjacent to our boundaries. His land benefits from our communal standards. He uses our roads. He should pay what we all pay." The judge turned a page. "According to your own charter, your HOA was established in 1999. Mr. Walker's property deed dates back to 1974. It predates your HOA by 25 years. He is exempt from all fees and obligations." Karen's face reddened, but she kept fighting. "We voted to expand the boundary." The judge nodded slowly. "Yes, I saw that motion in your meeting minutes. But expanding your boundary onto property you do not own is illegal. You cannot annex someone else's land by voting on it." The courtroom laughed. Karen glared at them but quickly snapped her attention back to the judge. My attorney stood. "Your Honor, in addition to their fraudulent attempts to collect dues, the HOA trespassed onto Mr. Walker's land to post notices on his fence, issued threats of forced compliance, and filed a legal complaint based entirely on fabricated boundaries. We ask for dismissal, reimbursement of legal fees, and sanctions for knowingly filing a fraudulent claim." The judge looked from me to the HOA board. "Ms. Karen, did your board knowingly attempt to enforce dues on property outside your jurisdiction?" Karen stuttered. "We believed. That is not what I asked." The judge's tone was cold. Karen's lawyer whispered frantically in her ear, but she pulled away. "We did what we had to do," she said bitterly. "People like him undermine everything an HOA stands for." The judge leaned back in her chair. "It is troubling that you equate legal property boundaries with undermining your authority." She lifted her gavel slightly but didn't tap it yet. "Given the clear evidence, this case is dismissed." The gavel struck the wood. But the judge was not finished. "Furthermore," she continued, "I am ordering the HOA to reimburse Mr. Walker's full legal costs. Additionally, I am forwarding this case to the county for investigation into misuse of authority and fraudulent filings." Karen's head jerked up. "What? You cannot do that." "Oh, I assure you, I can," the judge replied. "And I am." The room erupted, gasps, mutters, even one neighbor whispering, "Finally." Karen collapsed into her chair, her confidence evaporating. The board members stared at each other, pale and speechless. Then the judge delivered the final blow. "It appears from the evidence that this HOA has repeatedly overstepped its legal boundaries, intimidated non-members, and committed multiple violations of state HOA regulations. Effective immediately, I am issuing a temporary suspension of HOA authority pending the county's review." Karen looked like the floor had dropped beneath her. My attorney leaned toward me. "In simple terms," he whispered, "the HOA is basically shut down until further notice." Karen jumped to her feet. "You cannot dissolve our entire HOA over one man." "This is not about one man," the judge said, packing her papers. "This is about the misuse of power. Court adjourned." The gavel struck again. The board slumped in defeat. Karen stormed past me, shoulders trembling, refusing to look at anyone. People in the room watched her go with an expression I'd seen many times, relief. Outside the courthouse, several neighbors approached me. "Thank you," they said, shaking my hand. "You did what we were all too scared to do. You saved this neighborhood." I smiled, feeling a weight finally lift. All because I stood my ground against an HOA that tried to bully me. Justice had not just been served, it had been delivered in full. And for the first time in months, the neighborhood felt free.